And thank you for joining today's webinar, Strengthening Sterility Assurance Competency, How MedAccred and SfSAP are Raising the Bar for MedTech Training. I'm Justin McCabe with the MedAccred program, and I'll be moderating today's session alongside Arthur Dumba and Kim Patton. Today's session focuses on critical industry shift, moving from documented training to demonstrated competency in sterility assurance. Um, Competency gaps are a leading contributor to repeat findings, ineffective CAPAs, and audit fatigue. And this is especially urgent now due to resource constraints and workforce turnover, rapid changes in sterilization technologies, and heightened regulatory scrutiny on training effectiveness and root cause analysis. Today, we are going to be talking about both the MedAccred and SfSAP at a high level, just to level set everyone here, then dive deeper into the problem itself and looking at gaps, inefficiencies, and trends in the industry. And then again, coming back to MedAccred and SfSAP and what those organizations are doing to address these challenges. And we'll wrap up with some Q&A, and please feel free to throw your questions into the chat throughout today's discussion. So with that, I'm going to pull up the agenda here. And I failed to have that up on the screen as I was chatting, but these are the topics we'll be running through. And here are our esteemed speakers, Arthur and Kim. So we're going to just kick off again, high level MedAccred. I'll provide a few minute overview and then hand it over to Arthur to talk about SfSAP. So MedAccred, for those of you who are not aware of this industry managed program, it's really a new paradigm for sterility assurance supplier oversight. And the industry, the medical device industry, is moving away from a decentralized model that you can see exemplified on the left-hand side of the screen here, where every medical device manufacturer is individually auditing and overseeing each of their critical suppliers down through their supply chains. And of course, today we're talking about sterility assurance, so keep that in mind: sterilization lab testing. And what we're doing through MedAccred is bringing the industry together into a collaborative, safe space, pre-competitive space to develop detailed audits and oversight approach for critical suppliers. And so you can see, instead of doing dozens of audits of suppliers and suppliers receiving dozens of audits from their customers, the industry can consolidate around a single audit that is leveraged on both sides, and providing greater value to all the stakeholders in that process. And the way we're doing that is by conducting more deep dive technical process audits in addition to the QMS. So more rigorous audits, and one example that actually Nick Bryden from NextBeam recently shared was that in a typical customer audit, their customers looking at maybe 50, 60 documents as part of their audit, whereas in a MedAccred audit, we're looking at over 250 different documents. So just from a rigor perspective, we're going much deeper into the process. Our audits are also conducted by SMEs, so individuals with 20, 30 plus years of experience and highly, high expertise in the sterility assurance processes that we're auditing. Also, ownership of the program is very unique. So it's the industry stakeholders themselves own and manage the program. So everything from the content that goes into the audit criteria, the standards that are referenced, the individual questions and objective evidence that the auditors are required to be looking for is approved by the medical device companies who are subscribing to the program. Also, the auditors themselves are interviewed and selected by the industry. And then ultimately, once the audit is performed and nonconformances are addressed and closed out, the OEMs review that audit report and they vote on the accreditation decision. So the ownership is theirs as well. And then finally, the sustainability aspect of the whole approach is unique. Again, imagine not having to fly your technical teams to your suppliers around the world on a annual or biannual frequency. You can you can be sitting, in your office and looking at those audit details. Again, having full confidence in the audit criteria, the auditors, and the audit process because you've been intimately involved in that throughout. Last thing I'll share on the MedAccred program before I hand it over to Arthur is that even though on the face of it, this is a quality focused program, and ultimately it is. So the objective is to ensure patient safety outcomes by ensuring the process quality and capability down through the tiers in the supply chain all the way through to the final product, being used in an operating room or, um, you know, uh, implanted in someone's body. But looking across an organization and the value that this approach can bring to them, all the way at the executive level, imagine, the risk reduction from using this approach to ensure that consistent, quality across your critical suppliers around the world. Then from a sourcing perspective, hey, we needed to turn on a new contract sterilizer in Malaysia or in Tijuana, Mexico, or wherever. Knowing that they have this MedAccred accreditation gives them the ability to pivot more quickly. Also, we have, from a quality perspective, early warning notifications. So you'll be notified right away if we see that there's some potential, product impact related nonconformances. To for one of your suppliers, and then maybe on the R&D side as well, you can use this as a kind of vetting your critical suppliers early on in the development of new products, and some of our subscribers are saying that it shortens that window for getting new product to market, because you have confidence that that supplier can deliver on time and at the level of quality that you need. So I could keep going on MedAccred, and we'll get into that later, but I'm going to hand it over to Arthur to talk a little bit about SfSAP.
Hi, everybody. My name's Arthur Dunbar, Director and General Manager at the Society for Sterility Assurance Professionals. Next slide, please. So what is SfSAP? Well, SfSAP was established as a collaborative, not-for-profit organization sponsored by AAA, AMI, and PDA. What it encouraged is collaboration and formulation of a standard approach to meeting the regulatory requirements. The regulatory requirements talk about demonstrating competency and skills and knowledge for those involved in the field of sterility assurance. We created standard frameworks which which users can use to show the areas that they have developed their competency, skills, and knowledge, and also to assist in the delivery of maintaining competency and training and the continual development of those people that work in sterility assurance. Next slide. So SfSAP has a number of modalities, working groups, which cover the main established sterilization modalities. But the core is to support the requirements of those that work in sterility assurance, not just knowing the regulations and standards, but having a technical, in-depth understanding of what and why they are doing what they're doing. Next slide. So the collaboration of competency comes together with healthcare manufacturers, with individuals. Individuals can use the frameworks in their day-to-day development. Education delivery organizations create training programs and educational pathways for those that want to become competent in their specific modality or area of sterility assurance. And health authorities. Health authorities themselves are not immune from demonstrating competency because, as we know, an auditor that comes into audit need to have the technical knowledge and show that they understand the technical requirements of the industry. These four areas come together to ensure that we're all working from the same baseline and we all have a clear understanding of what competency, skills, and knowledge means in the sterility assurance area. Thank you.
All right. Thank you, Arthur. So as we transition over to this next section of the webinar, really digging into the challenges that the industry is facing in this space. Um, the sterilization standards require competency, right, which is defined as the quality or state of having sufficient knowledge, judgment, skill, or strength of sterilization professionals. And both MedAccred and SfSAP are impacting competency in the sterility assurance community from a regulatory perspective. So as Arthur shared, SfSAP provides a standardized approach to the demonstration of competence, and MedAccred provides competent auditors and access to common deficiencies. So with that, I'm going to hand it over to Kim, and she's going to provide some overview of the challenges out there.
Okay, thank you, Justin. Hello, everyone. Thank you for being here. I'm going to be talking a little about some things I see as I'm out in the industry, either auditing, participating with standards development groups, attending conferences. So I do spend a good bit of time in the industry and have opportunity to see this, some of these issues globally. And some of them are, some of my pet peeves. You may have heard me speak on them before. So we'll go into a few details here. Some industry gaps and deficiencies linked to competency that I've seen. The first two, resource constraints and turnover. So high turnover is seen still in specialized roles like R&D and quality, and it continues and is compounded by a fairly long ramp-up time for new hires, and then a significant shortage of specialized talent in regulatory fields. And then human error and true root cause. Way too often, human error is being listed as a root cause at the end of an investigation, and human error is not a root cause. It's a symptom of something being wrong. It's not a cause and should not be the end of the investigation. So many companies are not drilling down to true root causes, and so I see the same nonconformances continuing to be issues. And typically what I see is human error as the cause and retraining as the corrective action. And honestly, this is really just lazy management, overlooking some underlying issues, such as possibly insufficient or incompetent resources. So most causes of human error come from lack of training, poor communication, fatigue, stress, distractions is a big one, and then faulty equipment. So looking now at training and read and understand. So training is not working well in our industry, and read and understand to me is widely to blame. It's used and widely considered the least effective way to ensure competency, and it's increasingly becoming a red flag for regulators. So the problem with read and understand is it provides zero evidence and little to no retention. So in our click-through culture, employees often treat read and understand tasks as administrative noise. Then there are other things. I'm not going to go into a lot of detail on the rest of these, but procedures not being followed is just a very common, but again, that goes back to just distractions and read and understand not being clear. Also, incomplete documentation is something we see a lot, and ineffective kappas and kappa extensions. So let's go to the next slide, please. And I'm going to take the opportunity. Next slide. Okay, we are there. Okay. The opportunity to talk a little bit about root cause analysis. Obviously, there are lots of really good trainings out there on root cause analysis, but there's just wanted to point out one thing, something I picked up from W. Edwards Deming, who is a statistician, on root cause analysis that can improve your investigations. So start with these 4 questions as you're doing your root cause analysis. The knowledge check first, did they actually know the standard or the procedure? If the answer is yes, then retraining is useless and you're solving a problem that doesn't exist. Second, the capability check, could they physically do it as designed? If the process requires 3 hands or a 7-foot reach, then there's a design failure. Then third is the tool check. Did the equipment work properly? So you can have fixtures slip, scanners lag, software crashes. So you need to make sure that you fix the tool before blaming the user. And then finally, and the most common is the incentive check. Was doing it the wrong way actually easier or faster? If the shortcut is faster, people will take the shortcut. That's human nature. The system is teaching the wrong behavior. So Deming proved that 94% of problems come from the system and only 6% from the people. So we need to stop blaming the 6% and fix the 94%. Next slide then. All right, so I'm going to go into a few trends that we've been seeing in the industry, some for a good while now, like this first one. So transferring from one radiation type to another, this has been in play for 5, 6, 7 years now, maybe even longer. But there's increasing clarity around the requirements now for transferring dose between radiation types. We have this through industry standards, guidance documents, white papers, including a look at a regulatory approach. But ISO 11137 Part 1, the newly released 2025 version, states transference of a verification dose or a sterilization dose to a radiation source different from that on which the dose was originated or originally established is permitted, provided that the product does not contain water in the liquid state. So that makes it fairly easy then to determine that sterilization and verification doses can be transferred between these sources. And as far as transference of maximum acceptable dose, typically an assessment is required. Recommend looking at TIR 104, which has some great guidance on transferring max dose. As you'll see below here, a number of white papers listed that have some really good guidance on transference. Next slide. So another trend now is alternative sterilization modalities. So there's an increased focus on alternate modalities. And there's been a couple, in the last 2 years, a couple of international scientific exchanges taking place, initiated by TÜV Süd looking at alternative technologies. And additionally, the AMI Sterilization Standards Working Group 11 is working on TIR guidance documents for nitrogen dioxide and chlorine dioxide. So those are going through the process, and I think the nitrogen dioxide document should be published fairly soon. Next slide, please. So uncertainty is a trend going on in the industry with a lot of spinoffs, layoffs, acquisitions, reorgs, resource constraints like we've already looked at. So you see headlines of mass layoffs from large companies like Thermo Fisher, Baxter, and Dexcom. But at the same time, the industry is desperately in need of a specific type of talent. And so this isn't just a simple case of downsizing, but maybe a type of rebalancing. Large OEMs like Baxter, BD, and 3M and more are actively spinning off business units and downsizing to focus on core high growth areas while also using acquisitions to fuel innovation. There's a massive shortage of talent that understands the evolving global regulatory landscape. The FDA also facing its own resource constraints, and the industry then is competing for a very small pool of experts. And then the efficiency squeeze, always doing more with less, and companies are beginning to use automation and AI to handle more routine tasks. One solution to this ongoing uncertainty during these changes in activities is relying on PRI MedAccred for your supplier oversight, but also PRI certification, training, and as well some customized solutions are available. And then relying on SfSAP for optimized frameworks for competency requirements for sterilization, including all established modalities and microbiology. And then VHP is currently being worked on as we speak. Next slide, please. And this last trend I was going to mention is just audits of technical processes being performed by non-technical auditors. And this is again, a pet peeve of the industry that, and it's an ongoing thing that I hear when I go into sterilization facilities and labs and even a lot of OEMs. It's, not value added to have to teach auditors about sterilization. They come in with just mainly a QMS approach. As well, auditing has become a huge burden with not enough resources to perform them. And so more to come on this and how it's being addressed. And the regulatory working group in SfSAP is addressing this by socializing the concept that the competency requirements apply to auditors. And as well, MedAccred is addressing by reducing redundant audits and providing only SME auditors that know sterilization when they go into sterilization facilities. Next slide, please. So some of the solutions here we're going to talk about. And to start out, I'm going to go ahead and turn it over to Arthur, and he's going to talk through some of this collaboration and synergy.
Okay, so the SfSAP frameworks are extremely detailed. They're directly linked to the clauses and requirements of the standard, and they also link to any other guidance documents that support how you meet those requirements. The SfSAP frameworks were created by over 150 SMEs from around the world, which want to create collaboration and giving their expertise in how they became someone of knowledge to an expert within the industry. Again, the working groups are working with regulators and auditors to accept their assessment of someone's competency using the SfSAP framework, which is a baseline that both learners, organizations, and auditors can use and understand to assess competencies. MedAccred is assuring this happens by only using SME auditors. Over to you, Kim.
Next slide. Okay, Arthur, I'm going to let you start with this, the SfSAP part, and then I will cover MedAccred.
Yeah, so the SfSAP frameworks don't just look at what the standard says. You need to understand why you're doing what you're doing and how you do what you're doing. This helps ensure that training is very targeted to your specific role or within your organization, rather than being generic and having to memorize and read through lots of documents to understand what you need to know. So the frameworks are very modality specific. They're tiered. As we learn, we move from what we call 100 level, 200 level to 300 level, which I'll explain later on. And the competency components are also shown. So what would be the outcomes expected of someone if they were to learn a specific topic or modality? Kim?
So the MedAccred audit provides the proof. So you have the job audit, which is observation of practice, beyond read and understand, verification of qualified personnel, and then a direct link to the quality outcomes, such as Arthur is speaking of in SfSAP. The MedAccred audit is much more than a paperwork check. It's a deep dive technical assessment verifying whether training actually translates into on-the-floor competency. MedAccred audits provide proof of effective training through several rigorous mechanisms. The job audit, which basically the auditor goes onto the floor and watches a technician perform a specific task, whether it's loading a sterilizer, reading dosimeters, or performing a bioburden test. And then moving beyond read and understand training, MedAccred is looking for evidence that training goes beyond that, looking at on-the-job training records, testing and certification, so checking for actual competency testing that the employee had to pass before working independently. Interviews, auditors will talk to operators and ask questions like, what would you do if you had an unexpected dosimeter reading? And then verification of qualified personnel. We look at job descriptions for competency requirements and review skill matrix as well. And then direct link to quality outcomes in SfSAP. MedAccred audits look for a correlation between that training and performance. If a facility has high training compliance, but a high number of nonconformances, deviations in that same department, the auditor might flag the training as ineffective. Also, if nonconformances and CAPAs continue to be open for repeat issues, then the auditor might write a nonconformance for ineffective CAPA. So MedAccred is looking to see if the framework and outcome learnings like that provided in SfSAP is used to a degree. Next slide. Arthur, over to you.
So part of the key of training is ensuring that we capture any deficiencies, and these are translated into learning outcomes in the frameworks. So within SfSAP, Kim leads the regulatory working groups, where we see what deficiencies are occurring in industry for each of the modalities related to skills, knowledge, and training. We then review the learning frameworks and said, have these deficiencies or gaps been captured within the framework? If there's some gaps in the learning frameworks, the working group is informed, and the working group then updates the framework to capture any gaps and learning outcomes that need to be included to address any of the deficiencies that are found in industries. The EDOs can then take the frameworks and use them to create enhanced and better training, which can then focus on specific industry deficiencies that are common across the industry. Learners and organizations and regulators can then reevaluate the performance over time to see if the training, the learning has impacted the rate of deficiency. So are we seeing deficiencies going down? This is an important cycle in terms of ensuring the frameworks are up to date, ensuring that training is at the forefront of the learning curve, and reducing deficiencies and increasing patient safety. So MedAccred audits the process to ensure compliance and identify any gaps that are found within the learning process. Kim.
Next slide. Okay, so just looking again at this synergy between these two organizations in achieving a higher level of compliance. So for primary target, the MedAccred focus is the process, the equipment, validation, data. The SfSAP focus is the person, the knowledge, skills, and experience. The evaluation method for MedAccred is technical deep dive audits. For SfSAP, it's competency frameworks and learning outcomes that are action-based. Resource allocation, MedAccred is reducing redundant audits and waste. SfSAP provides clear professional career paths. The end result for MedAccred, verified manufacturing excellence. For SfSAP, a qualified professional workforce. The training goal is records of completion plus demonstration and evidence of effectiveness. For SfSAP, it's demonstrated technical competence through outcomes. So root cause corrective action depth. For MedAccred, rejecting surface level actions such as retrain the operator. And for SfSAP, standard systemic approach. So root cause corrective action is the engine of improvement. The major goal of the MedAccred SfSAP partnership is to move away from blaming human error, and instead of retraining a person, which rarely works, proper root cause corrective action looks for systemic failures, such as was the training material unclear, was the equipment interface confusing. And then looking back up to resource allocation by performing deep dive root cause corrective action, companies stop wasting resource on Band-Aid fixes, and they invest in the correct fix once, which improves long-term sustainability. And then finally, audit focus is technical deep dive audits into the process with SME auditors for MedAccred, and for SfSAP, competency requirements that apply to auditors. And then finally, sustainability, reducing for MedAccred the risk and recurring issues, better resource allocation, and reduction in redundant audits. For SfSAP, a formal curriculum, knowledgeable workforce, replacing the tribal knowledge process. Next slide, please. Okay, so this is a busy slide, but again, this collaborative approach between MedAccred and SfSAP, both being their own organizations, but overlapping here in the industry in compliance and regulatory alignment and sustainability and resource allocation. So both programs are designed to satisfy a high level of requirements, such as ISO 13485 and the QMSR. They're unified standards, so MedAccred audits are vertical, meaning deep dive process audits, and SfSAP incorporates standard and guidance detail into the framework and outcomes. The regulatory alignment, the FDA has participated in a pilot program with MedAccred, acknowledging it as an acceptable approach for supplier oversight. By following SfSAP frameworks, companies can present auditors with clear evidence of personnel qualification, which is a major requirement for regulatory compliance. Sustainability, MedAccred, again, reducing audit fatigue. Instead of 20 different OEMs auditing a supplier, a single MedAccred audit can satisfy all of them. This, again, creates sustainability and a repeatable oversight model. SfSAP, historically, sterility assurance was a niche field where knowledge was passed down informally, like tribal knowledge. SfSAP makes the profession sustainable by standardizing competency with the learning frameworks and global harmonization by aligning training with international standards. They ensure the sterilization practices are consistent across borders, reduce knowledge gaps, and lead to medical waste or product recalls. Resource allocation, OEM efficiency, OEM can redirect their quality engineers away from routine supplier audits and toward high-risk innovations, relying on MedAccred for the supplier technical oversight. Supplier growth, suppliers use the SfSAP framework to identify skill gaps early. Instead of overtraining everyone, they can allocate training budgets specifically to move employees through the different levels from level 100 to level 300 based on actual business needs. So together, these two organizations create a gold standard ecosystem that is aligning personnel expertise with technical process rigor. Next slide, and Arthur, turning it over to you.
So previously we mentioned that learning is a growth process, it's a pathway. And we talked about the level 100, level 200, and level 300. So level 100 focus on knowledge and skills. Do you know the standards? Do you understand which modality they belong to? Level 200 moves you from competent to proficient, which is you have the knowledge, you have the skills. Now you add your experiences. What did you do when something went wrong? How did you address the problem? Where do you go to find guidance on how to perform a dose map, for example? Level 300 is primarily focused on experiences. It's focused on critical thinking. It's focused on, are you now able to mentor someone? Are you able to support someone and show them and demonstrate that you have the knowledge, skills, and expertise and experiences to address something if it goes wrong? So sterility assurance is critical to the healthcare and pharmaceutical industry. Demand for skilled professionals is growing, and SfSAP has developed robust frameworks to standardize, evaluate, and demonstrate competency to both your employers, to industry, and to regulators. Next slide, please. So when we talk about competency, it's an expertise. Everyone says, I'm competent, I'm an expertise, I'm an expert. These are specific requirements called out in ISO, in the FDA code, medical device single health program, etc., etc. And how is the healthcare industry going to achieve this? Next slide, please. So this is an example of the learning frameworks. The learning frameworks are created in these different levels, which have what we call learning outcomes. What is key also to this is that at the very top, you can see the standards and associated guidance documents that can help you navigate your way through the development of yourself as an individual. It offers standard competency frameworks and guidance for learning pathways. And it's also supported by industry leaders and regulatory experts. Next slide, please. The competency frameworks ensure you have technical knowledge. Not just technical knowledge, it's also, can you go back one slide, please? So it's not just technical knowledge, it's your behavioral competencies. And supporting that are the practical skills. So as you move from new foundation to become a practitioner, to become an expert, these are all key to your development. Next slide, please. So the learning outcomes are knowledge-based. For microbiology, for example, contamination control and regulatory compliance. The skills, validation skills, process design skills, risk assessment skills, behavioral skills, a GMP mindset, ethical and responsibility, and it helps grow and develop a skilled quality culture. Next slide, please. So in conclusion, the strong collaboration between MedAccred and SfSAP is supporting industry. The SfSAP frameworks have been integrated into BD, Abbott, Steris, and Sterigenics, just to mention a few, into their talent development and learning programs. The outcomes they've seen is alignment in industry needs, greater personnel development in terms of personnel taking ownership for their growth and growth opportunities, understanding what they need to learn next, and alignment in regulatory requirements. Regulators now understand what skills, what knowledge, what expertise are needed depending on the modality and the area of sterility assurance that you work on. Justin?
Great. Thank you, Arthur. And yes, similarly on the MedAccred side, the really the magic of the MedAccred approach is it's industry working together in a collaborative space. So it's bringing the best minds from companies of all sizes, the large medtech strategics, the contract sterilizers, other subject matter experts, and really bringing all of that together to develop the detailed audit criteria that we have in selecting the auditors and ultimately accrediting the suppliers in the end. So really aligning on best practices, ensuring consistent technical capability globally. Like I said, MedAccred ensures that high bar of capability, regardless of location, company size, etc. And then it's continuously improving as well. So as standards change, as the regulatory landscape changes, we are in line and in tune with that, and updating the program, you know, in response. So. So really an exciting, on both sides of this line here, we're collaborating, but as you can tell as well, there's collaboration between our organizations as well to ensure the highest level of competency and capability across the sterility assurance industry. So with that, I'm going to bring us to the question and answer section of this webinar. And I see we've got a question in the chat here. So for those that have those questions that are burning, please throw them in the chat, and we'll make sure we get an answer from our panelists here. So the first one is what is necessary for a company to be registered in both organizations? So yeah, how to get involved, I guess. Maybe Arthur, I'll start with you. I think you're
Within
on mic there.
SfSAP, it's free to join. SfSAP is highly focused on the individual. So individuals can join the organization and download the learning frameworks for free and start planning their development journey. So just go to www.sfsap.org for more information.
Great. Thank you, Arthur. And you can see the website is below Arthur's signature there. On the MedAccred side, there are a number of ways to get involved. The easiest way to get involved and really to understand the conversation is to start participating in MedAccred sterilization task group, which Kim leads. And that group is, again, composed of OEMs and suppliers and other industry experts that are continuously improving the audit criteria. Again, keeping a pulse on the industry and how to ensure that our audit and accreditation program is aligned with where the industry is. More specifically, if you're a medical device manufacturer, you can leverage MedAccred to oversee your sterilization and lab testing suppliers. And we also have other programs for injection molding and PCBA and others. But you can become a subscriber and again have access to the audit information and decision-making power, again in the full program. So there are different levels of subscription. You're a multi-billion-dollar OEM, or you're a $100 million in revenue OEM. You can access it at different price points and tiers. So let Kim and I know if you have questions or need more information there, and we can provide that. The other two areas to get involved, MedAccred, if you're a supplier and want to get accredited and put that stamp, that MedAccred flag out in front of your facility, you can schedule an audit and go through what we understand from the companies that have been through it, a very rigorous and detailed audit. It's not easy, just putting that out front, but it is extremely valuable to you and to your customers. And then lastly, we open up the program to industry associations, regulators, and other subject matter experts who want to get involved. So again, let us know if you want more information, or and I see Matt has put the websites in the chat there. So thank you, Matt. A couple of questions, mostly for Kim and Arthur. When we're talking about training versus competency, many organizations, I'm sure, Kim, you see this, in many of the audits and in your previous experiences, they show extensive training records. It's probably no lack of training records out there, but you're still seeing repeat findings. When you're looking at a company's systems. So in your experience, what's the clearest signal that a problem is truly a competency gap and not just a documentation or training issue? I don't know if that's an easy question to answer, or what your thoughts are there.
So if I see mostly read and understand training as the majority of how training is handled for the facility, I mean, that's certainly a red flag. As I talked about earlier, the retention is about 10% after a certain amount of time for something that is just read and not acted on. It needs to go along with actions to really make it a learned behavior. So yeah, read and understand is something I cringe when I see. I like to see that there are assessments being done to determine the effectiveness of the training, whatever training was done, and then also just external trainings are good as well for maintaining competence. Recurring training is very important, so I look for that. So yeah, those are some of the things I'm looking for. Does that answer your question, Justin?
Just
Does
to
Arthur?
just to
Yeah,
just
please.
to add to that, and this is why we developed the SfSAP framework. It goes beyond that read and understand. So traditionally in companies, yes, I've read the procedure, but is there a follow-up to see what are they doing in their job? Is someone assessing the way they're performing the task, and is it as per the procedure? And then is there feedback? Do they 1 month, 2 months later say, okay, great assessment. So you've done the read and understand, and you've actually done the practical hands-on assessment, um, hands-on work to show that you can implement the procedure effectively. So as Kim said, read and understand is always a red flag for me.
Good points, both of you. I guess if you're an executive leader and you're thinking about training, maybe across your organization, what would be one mindset shift that you would want executives and quality leaders to leave with today? Something they could act on immediately. Um, is there any one thing that you could think of, like from your experience? It's maybe an easy first place to start,
For me,
other than
it's
participating in our programs if they're not right now. But go ahead, Arthur.
it's the continual development aspects, not just saying this is the person's job and that's it. So what skills can we give them to better enhance their knowledge, to better enhance and therefore perform that job a lot better? And if that person wants to move on and grow within your organization, it gives them the opportunity, the frameworks give them the opportunities to link their learning to other opportunities within the organization. So it's a powerful tool that can be used for the development of individuals within organizations.
Yeah, I would say that training is the underpinning of everything that is done in an organization. So it doesn't just end after onboarding. It's an ongoing development process, and I wish there was a better word for it. Training just doesn't seem to cover it.
Well, that'll be everyone's homework to come up with a better word for training. Training, but no, I get it, Kim. Yeah, it's so important that that word doesn't give it, the full weight of the importance. Um, Another question here. So I think we touched on earlier, Kim, you in the challenges that the industry is facing: turnover, fewer subject matter experts available, increasing technology complexity, AI. Um, what does a sustainable sterility assurance oversight model actually look like 5 years from now? And I think, Arthur, I'm sure your organization is thinking about this, uh, and I'm sure Kim, we're thinking about that. The sterilization task group as well. But what does training look like and competency look like maybe not even 5 years from now? I'm sure changes are happening pretty fast.
So for supplier oversight in 5 years out, I would say it looks like MedAccred, um, looking like the NADCAP model with 6,000 audits per year, and companies, medtech companies, relying and participating in that program, continually improving it in order to always grow their supplier oversight, and having suppliers engaged in the process, and a collaborative spirit between and through the industry.
Yep, I also see universities, colleges, because sterility assurance isn't really taught as a subject. And starting that journey there connects us to the industry needs, because this is the development phase of those coming out of academia, coming into the industrial workplace, being able to apply their skills and knowledge. And then the industrial workplace gives you the experiences, because that's when you meet real customers. That's where you see real impact on outcomes to patients, and also the development of standards. Once you have those experiences, you complete the life cycle by joining standards organizations, by joining MedAccred and saying, hey, how can we change this to make this more robust, to make this more understandable? So there's a life cycle ecosystem that we need to build on, which includes not just organizations, regulators, academia, teaching this core subject within universities and technical colleges.
Oh, that's great information, and yeah, very insightful. So yeah, it really is. There's not a one, one size fits all. It's going to require the whole industry coming together to solve these challenges. One last maybe insight, Kim, into I know you conduct a lot of audits for MedAccred, and you've done that previously in other companies you worked with. Um, when you conduct an audit and you've identified a nonconformance, and you're working the root cause with that supplier, and you see they put in training as more training as the response, and how they're going to address that, how do you what's your next question after that? Do you usually
So,
just say, yeah, that's good, yeah, just more training?
no,
No.
if I do carefully review the response, and if it is appropriate that it's training, that training did not take place, or some other reason, then that's fine. But when it's you know human error, and then I go back to the auditee and say, if training did not work the first time, what are you doing different so that it will work the second time? Or is there a better answer? And so part of that MedAccred process is the back and forth on the responses, until basically, as the staff engineer, I am satisfied that appropriate root cause corrective action has been taken.
Good answer. Anything you want to add to that, Arthur?
Nope,
Or-
I totally agree. It's moving away from paper-based audits, following a paper trail, to adding a bit of depth and a bit of technical challenges.
Great. Well, this has been enlightening for me. I've learned a lot. Hopefully, our audience has as well. Wanted to thank Arthur and Kim for your time today. Just two things I want to leave you with before you sign off. If anybody here or your colleagues will be at Amy Nexus next week, both Kim and I will be there. So would love to continue the conversation, in the hallway or after a session. And then second thing and last, just a preview, and I see it's cut off a little bit on the slide format here, but Kim is going to be performing or conducting a 2-day training in the spirit of training here today, 8 hours total virtually in mid-June, really doing a deep dive into the MedAccred audit process, what's in our audit criteria, what are auditors looking for, what are the standards that are being referenced, and it's going to be an awesome session. So if you or your colleagues really want to do a deep dive, yeah, attend that session, and I hope to see some of you there. But with that, we're gonna sign off. Thank you everyone again for your time, and hope to see you on the next webinar or the task group or out in the industry. Thanks very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.